Hello everyone, happy Friday. We're coming at you once again. And once again it is Will. Will, hi.
Hi, Joe.
Connor as well, hello.
Hi, Joe.
You're back by popular demand and some specific logistical issues we had this week. You can email in indosportpodcast@independent.ie. Lots to get through today. We even left some very, very good emails off. Will and I had a long conversation about one email.
One email was so good, we had to save it.
Every time I come in here, it's just absolute gold from the emailers.
Well, I don't think anyone tops our Awfully Friends this week, but it's very strong nonetheless. And then there's just some other stuff we want to talk about anyway, things going on. Hi Joe and team, enjoyed your conversation last week about your respective midlife crises. I never said I was having a crisis.
It was implied.
It's weighing on me, but it's not a crisis just yet. Given all your 80s, 90s kids, would you discuss which was the better cartoon, Batman or X-Men, and who was the more compelling character, Batman or Wolverine? Up Wexford, John Lillis. We're not quite going to go down that route. No. I think, if that's okay.
Batman.
We will save that for the National Concert Hall, maybe. James Cook thanked us for our piece on Monica Seles. He said, I recall her era of dominance. This was the 3 years when she was 16 through to 19, between 1990 and 1993. I recall that era of dominance very, very well. This was before the stabbing. Her success was due to the fact she'd pulverised the ball on both sides. No one had ever hit the ball as consistently hard as Seles. No one. Graf was a great athlete, Seles was not, but she would be run ragged by the pace of Seles' ground strokes. It would have been genuinely fascinating to see how their rivalry would have progressed had Seles not been attacked. I don't think that Seles would ever have got to 20 majors. Her lack of athleticism would have been more of a factor as time wore on. However, for a period in the early 90s, she was just blowing people off the court. Only her matches with Graf were tight affairs. Keep up the tennis segments. A proper analysis of the greatest tennis rivalry ever would be great. That rivalry being Djokovic and Nadal. And on he goes, James Cook. Thanks, James. We had a great reaction to the Monica Seles piece. Check it out if you haven't. We think it's quite good, but I appreciate tennis. Not everybody's kind of main sport. It might be easy to blow by it, but check it out if you get a chance over the weekend. A lot of road-related emails. People want to share their experiences.
This is like, what's Alan Partridge's thing in the morning?
This is great banter.
Yeah, it's good.
John, I've been listening to the latest bits and bobs with the guy driving in the US on interstate, whatever it was. It was the I-10.
That's a bit flippant.
It was the I-10. The fourth longest interstate in America. Built in 1957. I can't get that date out of my head now. He says, though, this is a beautiful thought. I think my listening experience could be the opposite to your US emailer. I listened to bits and bobs on my way to work on a motorbike along a country road from the small town of Waiuku to the biggest town of Papakuru through the intercom system in my helmet. I just thought you'd like to know there are people worldwide with different listening experiences. Many thanks, John, in New Zealand. Isn't that a nice thought? I used to do that. I used to listen to podcasts on my helmet driving the motorbike.
Do you used to drive a motorbike?
Yeah.
Harley Davidson?
No, it was a Yamaha. Can't remember the name. 300cc.
How long did you drive? You didn't strike me as a motorbike driver now, must
No, a lot of people say that to me.
When did you ditch it?
I drove it for about 10 years. I ditched it 2-3 years ago now. A couple of things happened. One, I have a child and you think... And then I was at traffic lights or approaching traffic lights in 2020 and some dude who was on his phone just rashed into the back of me and I fractured a vertebrae in my spine.
Jesus.
Yeah, but he was only doing maybe 30. I was slowing down. I wasn't braced for it was the problem. I was really relaxed on the bike. I was probably listening to a podcast and he just kept coming and crashed into me. And weirdly, I lost my nerve on a bike because I realised, I mean, intellectually you understand if I'm in a crash, it's going to be bad. But when you physically experience it, you're like, oh my God, I'm so fragile. Like that was a 30k kilometre and he fractured like a vertebrae on me. And I had back trouble for a long time after that. And so I found if I was going around turns, I wasn't leaning into the turn the way you should. And to be good at anything, you have to be confident at it. And especially driving something like a motorbike, you have to be a little bit, not reckless, but a little bit, in charge of the thing. And I was actually stiff. And so I looked like a beginner going around the bend again. And if a car came within like 20 metres of me. I was like, beep, road rage, like, Jesus, did you not see me? And I just, you mix all that together, and I thought,
Lost your appetite for
a little bit. But I would love at some stage when the midlife crisis really kicks in.
It's either that or a Porsche.
To hit Road 66, which is fairly straight driving. I'd love to do that. I just think the sunsets and being on a bike is a beautiful experience. Honestly, anyone who drives a bike can tell you it's class. But that was it. There you go.
Lovely. Interesting.
One more American email and then we'll get into what's happening. Fellas, I'm shocked. Back on Bits and Bob's podcast around Christmas, you mentioned your American listeners and their locations. It was a quiet week, all right? One individual in Kansas was mentioned, and then I was thinking, the lads will have to mention me listening in Wisconsin. But no, not a mention at all. Surely I'm the only Irish person listening in the dairy capital of America. If not, please let me know. Like the fellow Irish lad driving on the I-10 in Texas. See, he knows the I-10 because he's American. I too commute on one of the longest highways in the States. I drive on the I-94, which is 1,580 miles. Of my 10 commutes each week, I listen to you guys 9 times. I'm afraid the 2 Johnnies pip you on a Monday morning.
Oh, that undoes all the 9.
The email was going so well.
It gets worse. I've loved the show from the get-go, especially the input from my fellow dub, Colm Keys. We're going to let Meath man Colm Keys know you like him. All the best from Wisconsin, Kieran, formerly of Dublin. Kieran, we have run the numbers for you. Just last week alone in the dairy state, we had 56 individual listens. Not listeners, but 56.
He's responsible for 9 of those.
He's 9 of them.
Yeah.
So now we're down to what?
47.
47.
We had 8 podcasts. There are somewhere between 7 and 12 of you. Enough for a fan club.
Definitely enough for Bits and Bob's.
Milwaukee edition.
Fun to get together.
Yeah.
Alrighty, here's what's going on this week. URC, Garry Ringrose is going to miss 3 games.
3 games, yeah. No, sorry, it was a 3-game ban, but it's 1 game in effect. Because tackle school reduces it on the back end. And they were also able to argue that Leinster Cardiff this weekend counts, which is quite farcical because there was a similar ban at the start of the Six Nations when Roman Ntomac got sent off in the opening night against Wales, and they unsuccessfully tried to argue that the Toulouse game in the following week should count, and they were denied. Why the Leinster game would be allowed to count, I'm not sure, because there hasn't been a case of a guy in the 23 playing in these following weeks going 10 years.
Yeah.
So that just seems like a kind of a bit of a joke. Like, if you want to give him a 1-match ban, give him a 1-match ban, but don't give him 3 and say, look, we're allowing you to use this match.
Why is it? Like, I used to think that the GAA were the only organisation that had ridiculous bans. You used to have these, like, people get a 4-week ban for being sent off in the All-Ireland final. They wouldn't play a match for another 3 months. Like, it'll make absolutely no difference.
Rugby's in a particularly odd place at the moment. Like, if you help old ladies cross the road, it goes to your character practically.
Right?
So tackle school gets you off 1 game.
1 game, yeah.
And if you said, I'm not going to tackle school,
then you have to do the game. And tackle school, as far as I understand it, is like you doing training with your own coaches and videoing it, and World Rugby then ticking the box or saying you've done it.
Is that what it is?
It's not like there's this roving defence coach who goes in and says, look, let's get this safe. That's not my understanding.
You have to wear a big, like, learner, tackler sort of thing.
Okay.
So
I guess, to be honest, look, missing the Italy game, disappointing for him, but it's all about the France game. He was always going to miss that, so in some ways it's not shocking news.
Well, you can play against Italy.
Oh, because 1 is Leinster, 2 is France, 3 is tackle school.
Yeah.
All right, okay.
But that's completely gaming this. Like, how on earth the Leinster game can be used? Like, if you're going to ban him for 2 matches, minus the 1 for tackle school, he should be banned for 2 matches, especially because Ntomac wasn't allowed to use Toulouse.
I think there's a fair argument, actually. If you're banned in the international arena, you serve 3 international matches minus the 1 for tackle school, and if you get sent off for Leinster, it's 3 club matches. Potentially, might be cleaner. You wouldn't have this farcical situation arising.
I just feel like the people making this decision should have the scope to say, this Cardiff game he was not going to play in. Like, the history, going back over 10 years tells you he was not going to play in this game.
No, but you get a good barrister in there. He was absolutely going to play against Cardiff.
That must be, the hearing started at 9 a.m. yesterday and only was finished at 5:30. Yeah. So that guy got his day's work. Like,
it's Elio calling a chart up. This was the Ringrose plan for Cardiff.
Because if you look at the Leinster team that was actually picked today, it's such a young team. Like, the idea that, like,
they needed Ringrose to
exactly
anchor
maybe
the
to
thing,
solidify it.
So that's that. We did have Andrew Conway on yesterday talking about Felix Jones, which was fascinating, but also the three retirees, all with thanks to Energia, who are very much behind our rugby coverage across the year. League of Ireland continues. Shells, Shamrock Rovers, the juicy centrepiece. Stephen Kenny's had enough of Content Kings, Bradley and Duff. Good old-fashioned war words with Ian Harte. We'll come back to that in a moment. Clare hurling in mourning. Shane O'Donnell missing the season. So this is our reigning hurler of the year. Shoulder injury from last year's final is what's done him.
Yeah, they've obviously tried to rehab it, and this happens an awful lot with inter-county players. I don't know whether it's specifically in this situation, but you do tend to find there's a little bit of, not short-termism, but players are kind of wrapped up and hopefully it'll heal and rehab things. Like I just read the quote that was in the Irish Times yesterday from Brian Lohan, said that we've kind of exhausted every avenue. So they obviously, like, the shoulder is such a knacky sort of an injury. Once you're dealing with sockets and stuff like that, it's never really the same. So it was obviously a last resort, but the fact that they've done it now, halfway through the league, means that he's out. And it's a disaster because there's nobody else that hurls like him. He's completely unique. He's the hurler of the year for a reason. He's one of the best hurlers to watch. Like when himself and Kelly are on the pitch, they give Clare an X factor. The two of them really do. They just do brilliant things that other teams can't. And like Clare are a really, really good team without them, but with the two of them, that they go over the top. And it's a shame because we know, like a couple of years ago with that concussion, it looked like we might never see Shane O'Donnell again. And he has had one of the great Indian summers to a career that might have been over. But to be cut down like this, when he's very clearly in the prime of his life, is a shame, I think, for everyone concerned.
And I can see why there might be a bit of a, I suppose, back and forth about, do we go surgical, do we kind of rehab it? Because it's the nature of the season now that a 3-month injury from February, March, April means you're missing a chunk of the provincial championship. And then certainly in Munster, when there's no guarantees of getting out of that, they probably wanted to see if they could have him for that portion, and now ultimately obviously out for the whole season.
Yeah, really disappointing. There is league on this weekend in football and in hurling. Clare, for instance, against Limerick. TG Carr is the hurling on the Sunday. By the way, just on Clare for a moment. So I see Cusack Park is now renamed. Now, this is a two-parter. It's Pjork Cusack, which is something they've been trying to do for some time because Michael Cusack never personally used the English version of his name. So Pjork Cusack, kind of cool. We like that. But it is now, for the next 3 years, and then there's an option for 2 extra years, it is now Zimmer Biomet Pork Cusack. They're an American firm. They do employ, I think, 1,000 people in the country, big employer in Clare, another facility in Galway. They make orthopedic medical devices, dental implants for joint replacements and all that. But I just have to be honest, my heart sinks every time this news comes through. Did we have like the collective GAA fraternity people in the country, did we ever have the conversation that this is happening? That we are handing over the names of these very beloved stadiums, almost institutions in Irish sport, to the highest bidder? Because I sort of, I'm not losing sleep over it, but it's just one after the other, after the other, after the other. And with all due love and respect to Zimmer Biomet.
Rolls off the tongue.
It just, who are we doing this for? Who are we paying? We're not paying the players. It's a wealthy organisation. Like, I don't know if we needed to do this. Why have we done this?
The cost of the teams, I'm suspecting potentially. Like, it's constantly an issue about the burgeoning cost of inter-county preparation. And now there's obviously integration coming down the track, which will magnify that even further. Now, this has been done before, the last 10 years. Probably it's become more prominent. Like Kingspan, Breffni Park is probably the first one I remember. But I'm imagining that's what it is it, Conor?
Park and Key was the big one last year. That they had the big debate over the renaming of the stadium.
Super value pork.
Yeah, but ultimately, I mean, when it comes down to it, like I'd love to know. Like I'd love to get somebody who's an expert in this to tell me the value of purchasing the naming rights to a sporting facility that's like 100 years old, that people refer to and will always refer to the same way they've always referred to it. Like there are instances slightly past now, we don't get them anymore, where you used to get kind of an narky email from somebody in the county board to tell you that in your copying the paper for the weekend, when you refer to the ground, you didn't refer to it by its sponsor. But we reserve the right to do that, the same way as the people going to the game reserve the right to refer to the ground whatever way they want to do it. So I mean, the madness of this to me is the fact that they've changed Cusack Park to Park Cusack while also putting on the name of a company at the start of it, because it's now completely alien. So, I mean, this isn't going to stick. Like, I think we all know that. And maybe the county boards, without saying it, will admit that they know it's not going to stick, and that's why it's kind of very easy money for old rope.
You just take the cash. Yeah, I don't know. I don't like it. Really
No, I don't like it
not
either.
good.
The only stadium that has successfully, I think, taken the brand and altered the name is the Aviva Stadium. I think now people would just say the Aviva. No one says Lansdowne Road anymore.
No,
There was at the start people
Took a
did.
while though, and it's a national stadium, so it goes to show you. Like not that I'd be referring to it very often over the course of my work, but like I was like when that changed, I was going out of my way to write pieces about Lansdowne Road and to call it Lansdowne Road.
Oh, I knew you would.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a real.
Yeah, exactly. That's a real go on.
Finish that sentence.
That's a real Conor McKeown, sneering Conor McKeown like line.
But it is now in common parlance the Aviva.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that they have won it, but I'm just making the point that is that is effectively, one of the two biggest stadiums in the country, and look how long it took, I think, for us to get there. That's what I'm saying about the value of this. Clearly, it is valuable. Otherwise, companies aren't just going to sink a load of money into a GAA county board for
The
it.
Aviva I get because of the cost and everything else, but I mean, these stadiums are built. There's no massive playing bill to be paid, wages. Like, there's a heritage aspect to these stadiums, and on the one hand, there's something very respectful about, well, actually, Michael Cusack himself didn't use the English version of his name, so let's use, I think I mispronounced it, Cusack?
Cusack, I'd say.
Yeah, Cusack. So I was like, yeah, let's lean into that heritage. And I'm like, lovely. Oh, at the same time, let's stick, I forgot what they're called.
Zimmer by
And Zimmerman. Well, whatever. Why are we sticking that in front of it? It's terrible.
And you could argue that the negative backlash to these decisions actually creates a negative publicity. When Super Value Pork was announced and that all kicked off, I doubt Super Value were sitting back being like, oh, we really are getting our good value for money here. In certain instances, such as the backlash, that the brand actually gets the opposite to what they wanted.
Is it just what's a Simple Stadium now have?
There you go. That's a good question.
It's 3 letters, isn't it?
Yeah.
FPD? No.
Jeez, I can't remember.
Does the Hyde have anything?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. McHale Park has something.
Yeah.
What is it?
Elvery's.
Elvery's, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
Will Croke Park ever be sold?
Well,
That would be the big.
This came up in conversation. I think Peter McKenna was asked about it when the Páirc Uí Chaoimh situation was unfolding. And they kind of said, no, one thing we'll never do is... But
Why is that more valuable than Cusack Park?
yeah, maybe, I suppose just because it's effectively the home of the GAA. But ultimately, county boards, the GAA has a weird setup insofar as a county board's sort of financial affairs are very much its own business. So, the more money it can generate, the more coaches it can employ, the more it can put into its teams, all that sort of stuff. So it's not as if they get to the end of the year and go, look, we have enough money. There is this company that's going to give us a couple of $100,000 just to change the name of the stadium, but we don't actually need it. Whereas I think Croke Park at central level, it could generate any amount of money really, and it probably gets to pick and choose which of these sort of soul selling avenues it goes down. But I mean, who would the GAA to be turning down kind of a couple of million a year for the sake of
I get it.
changing the name of the stadium?
Not completely unpractical, I get it, but these are just part of the fabric of the, our national...
Cusack Park is
games.
one of those grounds as well. It's about 10 years ago now, and before the kind of the fall in the whole economy. But Cusack Park was one of those venues, and there was a lot of them around the time where there were plans to sell it up and for the county board to kind of move to a purpose-built stadium, a nice little dinky sort of refreshed stadium on the outskirts of Ennis. And I remember around the time a lot of county boards were very much pro this idea because they were going to get so much money for this prime property in the centre of their town. But Cusack Park is one of those GAA grounds that's smack bang in the middle of Ennis and is great for that fact. I will take kind of central and ramshackle over a satellite ground out near a roundabout in a business park any day of the week. I suppose when you take it from that point of view, that from a practical standpoint, county boards were quite willing to actually not only change the name of the ground, they're actually willing to knock it down and move somewhere else, and that's kind of what it comes down to.
It is an FA Cup weekend as well, by the way. So if you like your lunchtime Saturday Premier League, then on Saturday this weekend you'll have Preston against Burnley or Palace against Millwall. Evening game is City Plymouth, United Fulham on Sunday. Does everyone's heart sink when the FA Cup's
even the way you're reading the schedule, that's how I'm feeling.
Do we even do a Monday football show? Although it's tricky, the Premier League's over, isn't it? Like we're not even last day of February, it's done.
Yeah, it was funny. Like I think the title of Monday's football show was the Premier League or Liverpool end the title race, and then Wednesday was the epilogue. You know, another drop points from Arsenal, another win for Liverpool. Can you be more over than over? I don't know.
Is the Champions League race the thing now?
Yeah, because the Champions League we've some really good last 16 ties like Liverpool, PSG, the Madrid derby.
Oh, sorry, I meant the race for top four.
I don't. Jesus, if you're one of the teams involved, you might be. But like as someone just covering it or watching it, I'm top four never does it for me.
Never for me either. Can Nottingham Forest hang on? Maybe a bit, but like
who cares? Like even if you say Nottingham Forest fans might, I say would obviously.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. I didn't start the season going, why did Nottingham Forest do today? It's not enough of a hook. Angry football people. This Stephen Kenny, Ian Harte war words is fairly like it's pointed, it's real. It's not just been exaggerated in the media in any way. The genesis, well, it goes back further than I'd realised, because I didn't realise for Stephen Kenny's first games that Ian Harte was very critical of him, in charge of Ireland that is, but Stephen Kenny remembered. But the current spat started with Ian Harte doing like a Q&A on a betting website. And we think some of it's been taken down, but we have
we couldn't find a whole tranche of the quotes that people have been reporting. Yeah.
But what's been left up is his opinion on Stephen Kenny, the manager. So this starts off with Harte like being asked about English football and Leeds and all that kind of stuff, and then it moves on to let's ask about Era. No, it's like that kind of a thing. So he says, I don't have a problem with Stephen. I don't. But I think he would always find positives in getting beat. This is him as Ireland manager. It's kind of a how will Heimer do post-Stephen. He'd always find positives in getting beat. Obviously, people who know football, people who've played football can see through that. And then obviously the fans cottoned on to it eventually. And I think he's found his level where he is. You know what I mean? I think he's a good League of Ireland manager. But international manager, don't think he was the best. So the other aspect to what Harte had said was that he basically thinks on foot of Mason Melia and other deals like it, that Irish clubs are, quote, killing chances of certain players moving to England. And he referenced a player who had been at Rovers, and Harte said he was completely priced out of a move to a Premier League club. And he says it's wrong for Irish football to do that. You're killing young lads' chances. So this was all put to Kenny. And on the killing lads' chances part, he said, well, look, he's entitled to his viewpoint on that. Obviously, I wasn't party to the negotiations of that specific case he was talking about. But for some reason, he wants to have a personal go at me. I've never met Ian Harte. I've never had a conversation with him. I've never come across him in any shape or form. I've met his uncle, Gary Kelly, a good few times. He's an absolute gent. Really impressive man. It was interesting. My very first game in charge of Ireland against Bulgaria, Ian Harte was tweeting. The headlines after the game were Ian Harte was tweeting this and that. I was like, I know there are going to be a few people waiting in the long grass, but he's a bit early. The game hasn't even finished and he's tweeting. People do tweet during games, I guess. People were saying to the FAI, well, look, Ian is Robbie Keane's friend and he's been his teammate and he's upset. He wants to show loyalty. He wants to get after you. So I said, okay, I'm not going to respond to him at that time. But now I'm thinking, I'm a year and a half out of the job and he wants to have a go. Stephen's found his level. Why would he want to say that? What would be his motivation for wanting to bring me into the conversation? I find that strange. For him to use a betting company to try and get himself a profile, to try and attack me in some way, I think he's an empty vessel.
Yeah. There's a couple of things that don't really make sense about that. Like, I mean, when you're talking about pricing players out of a move to the Premier League, as if like Premier League clubs can't afford players who are coming from the League of Ireland. Like, are League of Ireland clubs supposed to just be feeder, entities for players who want to go to England, and they should facilitate that by letting them go? Like football is a business. Ian Harte works in that business. He works for an agency. And like League of Ireland clubs are well aware of their place in the food chain. They're made aware of that all the time because we're so close to this big entity in England. And I'd love to hear somebody flesh out that argument, be it Ian Harte or anybody who kind of has the same opinion. The idea that League of Ireland clubs should facilitate players going to England as opposed to Italy by dropping the price as to what they think the player is worth, that doesn't add up to me at all. Whatever about the stuff about the personal criticism, and there may be, it sounds like there's some sort of personal issues there on Ian Harte's part. about Kenny, and saying the stuff that he said about Kenny, it's quite insulting. But at the same time, like, he wasn't a good international manager. The results bear that out. But like, that's I've read that a couple of times, and I found it hard to find a thread of Ian Harte's logic that League of Ireland clubs should sell players to England, to much richer clubs which use resources at a very sort of convenient price for the English club. I don't really see the sense in what he's trying to say there.
And the comments from Ian Harte go to like comments been made by Stephen Bradley and Damien Duff about like agents and just valuing the players in the league more. And are these the kind of conversations agents are having with League of Ireland club? Like, you have to drop that price. This is way too. Geez, who do you think you are? Like, you can try to charge this kind of price for this kind of player. It is interesting because that's been a particular bugbear of some of the managers, that we need to stand up and try to get our fair market value for these guys.
Yeah,
it ties into a thing, and I know Aidan Fitz was in here last Friday speaking about this when he was talking about Stephen Bradley in particular, and a piece that Dan wrote that's in today's paper as well. And I know the way that I think Aidan put it last week was like, who are the biggest voices in Irish football? And at the moment they're Damien Duff and Stephen Bradley, which is a really, really interesting dynamic. And you probably have to throw Stephen Kenny in there as well, because he's a former international manager. Yeah. But Dan makes the point in his piece, and I'd never thought about it like this, but even by the numbers that we get in here, the metrics for how well a piece does, something that Damien Duff says will like outrank what the international manager, what Heimer Hallgrimsson says, generally speaking, in two comparable pieces, which is just, it's a really, really interesting dynamic there, because what you have with those guys there aren't just people who can kind of back up what they have to say. Increasingly, they have very interesting things to say. They're not just happy to kind of mind their own parish and say, well, look, I have a hard enough job here trying to win the league. Yeah. They're quite happy to actually point things out, wrongs that they see within Irish football and elsewhere, and that's a very valuable thing to have, because
very nerve-wracking for the FAI, because two of the three of them are vehemently, publicly anti-FAI. Stephen Kenny less so publicly at the moment. I suspect there's a kind of period of respect post being employed by them, but the other two, couldn't be more critical. Look, I'm with you. I think Irish clubs should absolutely stand up to the richest clubs in the world, and it didn't stop Mason Melia getting a move to try and find out, a scintilla of kind of something in Harte's argument. Is there some, especially post-Brexit, is there some kind of fair is fair aspect to a player whereby you might get one chance to go to a Premier League club, they're willing to offer this, no more, and if you say no to it, I'm not going to get a chance to go over and experience a Premier League club and train with the best and work with the best and maybe see if I could reach my full potential. Like, please don't deny me that. Like, Premier League clubs have budgets like the rest. I know they're wealthy, but they're just offering this for me because that's all they think I'm worth. And can you let me go, please? And I can understand if an individual was sat here saying that was my one chance in my life to get to a Premier League club, and I didn't get to go because they wouldn't accept the 500 grand. They wanted 800 grand. And I feel I'm pissed off about that. I would be sympathetic to that person, but I am also sympathetic to, you're really wealthy. We're still talking chump change here in terms of £1 billion clubs. Pay the League of Ireland clubs what you should. And it hasn't stopped someone like Melia. So that's as much as I can flesh out the Harte argument.
Like, I don't know, I wouldn't know a balance sheet of any League of Ireland club, but I don't think, as far as I'm aware, that any League of Ireland club is in a position to turn down what would be considered a reasonable offer, even for one of their best players.
Yes, true. Now, Rovers may be a touch and Pat's a touch, but in the main, no, you're right. Yeah, it was a Rovers player Harte had mentioned. I don't know the specifics of that case. So anyway, look, it's hard. If someone calls you an empty vessel, it's kind of hard to respond, I think.
Yeah, mention the betting company, you don't really have a comeback.
Roy Keane on the overlap. The switch was flicked. He was kind of spiky-ish, talking about Gary Neville's 50th birthday party. He got a bit annoyed. Why do I need to dance? And then later on, Ian Wright had the temerity to suggest that Bruno Fernandes was, digging United out of a hole a little bit at times.
What's he saving? Everton. What's he saving?
If Bruno's not there, United are in the relegation place.
Right,
if Bruno's not
what's he saving him? If he's starting a young lad, you can't pick on him.
No, I'm not saying starting a young lad.
You can't start a foreign player. He's new to the league. Maguire the other day couldn't even jump. You say there every few weeks, you say Tony Adams was amazing. Maybe when I was with England.
I'm used to.
Yeah, of course. That's what the captain we expect. Now I've asked you a question. Who would you start going, he's got to do more? I'm not about a player taking responsibility. When they go out on that pitch, listen, show some courage. want the ball. When you close somebody down, close them down properly. We asked you earlier, could you play off the front? No, I have to be at people. I have to be on the shoulder, blah, blah, blah. Let me tell you something. When you close somebody down, when I call a bluffer, this is what I call a bluffer. So you're there, and I'm closing you, but I'm not really closing you down. So, and then you pass it. I've done my bit. Fuck off.
The best part of that is the Ian Wright impressions that he tries to do. He makes his voice slightly more annoying and then sort of repeats what Ian Wright's trying to say.
It was, I think visually it's worse. It sounds fine, but he was just really spitting.
Sometimes on those things you do get the impression that Roy Keane is, doing the performative grumpy uncle thing because everyone finds it so endearing and hilarious. But this is the first one that I've seen where he actually looks like he's fit to like wreck the gaff, and like partly is because of what they're talking about, but partly because Ian Wright won't see his point. You can actually see why an argument with Roy Keane would be an absolute nightmare about something that he actually believes in.
It is quite repetitive at the same time, like both that clip, because this is edited down to 30 seconds. There's like 4 minutes of it where they're kind of going around the houses. While it is entertaining, it's also very similar to some of his other overlap rants, and I do find them funny, but they're very, very repetitive. I don't watch the show, like I only consume it in snippets. If you watch that show every week, it must get so tedious, isn't it? It's very similar. Every clip I see is quite similar.
I watch it every week.
The full thing?
Full thing.
Really?
Yeah.
And you like it?
Well, evidently.
But you don't find it in any way repetitive or...
No. I find it very, very funny.
Yeah. No, it is funny, yeah.
It's a fantastic... And like, it's as close to like eavesdropping on people as you'll get it, like of that stature.
Bits and bobs-esque, you could say.
Well...
But they don't, in fairness, like they don't do the thing that people like. They don't resort to ex-footballers speaking like current footballers and cliches. Like it's a genuine conversation that they're going to have. And I mean, this is the same subject we always have about punditry. What do you want? But this is very much the class of punditry that's listening to what people would say if they were sitting down in the pub. They have captured that.
Yeah, they have.
With some very interesting people and one very combustible sort of a presence.
Not usually that combustible.
Okay.
Maybe in clip form he is, but actually this was 7-8 minutes, and you could tell on the video it was edited. There are a few clunky edits where I'd love to know, a la his infamous MUTV performance. What was left on the cutting room floor? It was a thought.
Yeah, like I don't find it boring. I just find it a bit repetitive.
I get that. A lot of people would say similar.
Yeah, like it's certainly interesting and compelling, and to hear the guys unguarded is like good. Visually and interesting, but
I think what ultimately hooks me back in is he's so funny, and I don't mean people could find his rants funny in an undeliberate way, accidentally funny, but like when he's trying to be funny,
he's very good one-liners.
Oh my god,
he's very self-aware.
It's hilarious.
Too,
He's brilliant.
He knows what people are kind of expecting.
He was cranky this episode, right the way through from minute one.
I'm going to an evening with Roy Keane and Roddy Doyle in the summer.
Oh, in Cork.
I go for Christmas, and
nice.
Be interested to see like what kind of. Is it going to be like this? Is it going to be the funny Roy? Him and Roddy Doyle together. Be interested to see what he brings.
Bit of everything. Yeah.
The greatest curiosity to me, like there can't have been a more sort of fascinating Irish person, let alone Irish sports person, than Roy Keane, because he hasn't literally done anything in the football arena for the last 15 years, and we're still glued to his every whim, every sort of raised eyebrow. But he went on Tommy Tiernan, and it's the format that we've been dying for, this very deep conversation, and he was just completely buttoned up. He wouldn't. It's funny that when it's in this environment, you get the best of Roy Keane.
He's comfortable with these guys. He trusts them. He really trusts them, and so he's gone to places about his drinking and stuff where he wouldn't go elsewhere. Yeah. And he trusts them as well. You know that whole thing, like your toddler will have a tantrum with you, but not the carer because they know you really love them.
Yeah,
he's kind of in that environment where him and Ian Wright are pals, and so for a man who says he doesn't support Man United, he felt fairly invested in them there. It all came out, and he's a captain. Bruno's a captain. I'd say he's like not fit to wear my captain's armband. That's probably part of that. But I've had no great experience with Roy Keane, bar one, kind of that at the Board Gosh a couple of years ago when Gary Neville was there as well. And to your Tommy Tiernan point and the buttoned up nature, there were a couple of occasions where he's smart. He could see when I was setting up the next question with the first question. Things like around drinking and around, and there's just a flicker in the. It's hard. You don't see it on camera, but in person, when you're looking at someone, you get a lot more, and you can see it coming a mile away. And he's off in another direction, and he's like, what he's actually saying when he looks back at you is, no, it's not happening, son. Not a chance with you. Might talk to Gary about it, not with you. But then on that same night, all the hits, Ferguson, Johnny Walters,
Going for a Chinese.
he'll knock all those out. Boom. But in terms of getting close to him, Tommy Tiernan had no chance that night. No chance.
Did you find it more difficult to interview than some of the other big names you've interviewed? Or
That was such a specific environment that it's hard to
show
judge.
as much.
Yeah. And like there were a baying 1,000 Man United fans, predominantly I think, who just there was like a slight bloodlust in the air, you know what I mean? What would you have had to say for them to go, no, that's too much? I don't know. So that was a strange set of circumstances. I think you'd have to trust you. What I tell you everything about Roy is we look at him with the beard and we think like he's like a philosopher, like let us in. And when he did that walk with Gary Neville and his dog, Neville initially asked something kind of a Tommy Tiernan-esque kind of a question, and Roy said, Nev, it's not going to be, that's heavy. That's heavy. You're not asking me about, and that was come on, not going there. But who knows how much is in there? Like Tommy Tiernan, I think, got frustrated at the end when he was like, what do you like about dogs?
Yeah.
And Roy buttoned up to the point where Tiernan goes, is it too hard a question?
Yeah, the question's too difficult for you. So
we never really know the depths.
Yeah.
He's never gone there.
I can't think of a more compelling person like in our contemporary sort of existence here. Like there's nobody that I'm going to use this phrase that I hate, but there is nobody that moves the needle like Roy Keane. Like he is, like for somebody who hasn't actually done anything in the field that he became known for in the first place in so long, it's extraordinary that he is still the character and such a prominent place in all of our psyches. Like he hasn't even lived here for about 40 years. Like,
well, I said to you, I don't want to talk about this. Like we're not talking about Roy Keane's psychology again, are we? But then based on my phone yesterday, there's just that hinterland of like 8 to 10 people, don't talk to them very often. And there they were on like I saw their name pop up on WhatsApp. I was like, I know what this is about. Yeah. He just has that kind of effect. Everyone was like, did you see Roy yesterday?
He still comes across quite genuine as well. That's
Brilliant.
The other thing.
Yeah.
So there's no part of that seemed contrived. There's no part of he's not sitting there going, "Oh, do I really have to, call somebody a bluffer here?" You know what I mean? Like it's still very much inside him, and that's why we keep coming back because, like when he does dish it out, there's no part of it seems performative.
No, because it was uncomfortable a bit yesterday. It crossed a bit of a threshold, I think.
Yeah, no, visually, as you said, like the clip doesn't actually do it justice as to how fuming he is, and I agree with Connor. Like it's very different to some of his other rants that are kind of every single week. This was like he was actually like ranting and raving, like in the cliched way.
But the appeal for me of him on that show is actually, I think you probably get the closest to what he's like around people he loves and in his house, and just like, kind of, woe is me. With a knowing smile, both has an ego, but kind of will take himself down a peg or two. Funny as hell with a one-liner. That full 3D package. Because if it was just ranty, Jesus, you couldn't watch that every week. But it's not really. The best stuff is him. Just 3 things I'm sick of: smiling,
breathing. This question.
Alrighty, that's kind of what it is. Full swing email. Let's put that on ice. This is a really good last one to finish with. All Ireland final replay, because we talked about this with Colm Keys. It's imminent now that Congress is going to vote. It was kind of complicated because it was linked with provincial final, so it didn't get through Congress. But Colm was saying it's absolutely imminent that All Ireland finals, if they finish in a draw, they're going to a replay. Clare Cork, obviously in the hurling last year, went to extra time. Cork lost, and a lot of us kind of felt, God, the players deserve a second crack at it. So Dot has written this in on his iPhone, on her iPhone, don't know which is a lengthy email to write on your iPhone. Hi team, I'm really enjoying the podcast and the various topics. You nearly had me convinced to watch TGL. Nearly. I thought the interview with the knowledgeable Colm Keys was very good as usual, but one disagreement I would have with you, Joe, would be about an All-Ireland final replay. Let me take you back to 2019. Kerry against Dublin, the All-Ireland football final. A fantastic day out, and don't get me wrong, it's an absolute privilege to be able to attend. But for someone living in North Kerry, a replay is a right old anticlimax. You're so excited for the weekend, meeting up with old friends. You booked the return train. Up Sunday morning, home Monday at some stage after a morning in the Palace Bar. Accommodation has been booked. Monday booked off from work. We even bought tickets to the after-party celebration with the team in case we won. The day goes just as good as it always does. That's a great line. Poker on the way up on the train. There's something so evocative about the next 10 lines. I swear to God. I read this dot and I actually felt nostalgic for being your mate. So, poker on the way up on the train. Money is won and lost. Breakfast and a pint in the Galway hooker at Euston Station. The Lewis or a taxi to the hotel. And straight to Murray's for a few nervous pints and meeting other people from the hometown.
Wow.
Come on.
This is getting up there with Offaly now.
It's so good. Then the match. Dublin Kerry never disappoints, unreal atmosphere, and then bang, Dean Rock has a last chance free to win it for the Dubs. But he doesn't, and so it's a replay. The whole city empties. We stay on as we have the hotel booked. The usual crowded pubs are lifeless. We even go to the hotel that we had tickets to for the team celebrations. Barely 40 people are in there. My buddy's delighted as there was nobody eating the finger food, I presume ready for the team, and he ends up eating most of it. The next day we get the train home, trying to reorganise the train a week later. The quest for tickets has to start again. Accommodation searches, possible calls to the boss for time off again. Thankfully, I only needed one ticket for myself as the kids were young in 2019. Now it would be €400 for the four of us, and with a replay that's €800. €400 is worth every penny for the experience the kids get to see their heroes. Be some crack telling them they can't go to the replay. I don't want to say it's easier when you live up there to call for replays, but you know what? It's easier when you live up there to be happy for a replay. Win or lose, we always enjoy the Monday in Dublin with the fans from the other counties. Great fun, but it should be left at that. As I said, privileged to go and support your county in an All-Ireland final. But from this North Kerry man, oh, you're a man, Dot, I'd be voting against All-Ireland final replays. Sincerely, Dot. That should be read out of Congress before the vote.
I don't think you can argue with that. But at the same time, like, I'm not joking. I came across, or spoke to a player who was involved in an All-Ireland final replay recently. And he basically said, like, when your whole season is geared around this end date, and then it goes to another week or 2 weeks or something. I mean, those three hurling replays in a row that we had in 2013, 2012, 2013, 2014, they were 3 weeks later. For those players involved, that's absolute torture. The idea that your season...
Oh, I thought the players wanted the replay.
No, but what I'm saying is the players that I met, that it's such an anticlimax to draw and then have to get your energy up to go for a replay. But I think it's fairer on the players, if you know what I mean, to go and do it again. And those All-Ireland final replays, they're different occasions. They are different. Like, they're kind of brilliant, but there's not the same kind... All that stuff that's outlined in Dot's email about people drinking in the same pubs and doing the same things and the same places that have the culture of the post-match, they're different.
Saturday evening is a different energy to Sunday afternoon.
Yeah. But even... Yeah. But, like, I think even from the point of view... Now, I would make the argument that a couple of the replays, All-Ireland finals, had better atmospheres because you have to remember, when it comes to All-Ireland finals, I think that competing counties only get something like 18,000 tickets or something like that. And the rest of them go to clubs all over the country and people come home from America and there's, you know, it's an occasion that a lot of people go to that aren't actually directly supporting one of the counties. Whereas for replays, you tend to find that they get far more tickets because there's fewer of those kind of... day trippers, maybe, if you want to call them. So you get an unbelievable atmosphere for the replay. But it does take away a small bit from the sense of occasion. The occasion has already happened, you know what I mean? Even if they didn't give away the cup the first day.
So which way are you voting in Congress? Sorry.
I'm going to go for the replay because I just think it's fairer.
Yeah, so am I. But Dot's, you know, I'd vote yes with less certainty after that.
I stand with Dot after hearing that evocative.
Depends on how much you win in the poker and the train.
Yeah.
If you're losing poker on the train, then you're down to 500.
Do you know, this would make you hark for a Kerry Offaly final, so Dot and his pals could meet the Offaly boys from the City Hall.
And as the confetti falls at the end of a drawn game,
I just think in the Boar's Head they'd have a grand time together. This would be a meeting of minds.
Yeah,
I want to be there too.
No, I'm going for the replays, and especially now that the All-Ireland final is so early in the year. In fact, go to a second replay as well to see, can we knock another couple of weeks out of it?
Yeah. There's a bit of that.
Because when you remember, like a couple of those All Ireland hurling final replays were in October. You know, like you were going to.
Yeah, it was dark.
It was dark, and it was.
I was at the 2013 one, the Clare Cork one. Yeah, it didn't feel right. It was too dark.
It was, yeah. We're gone beyond the point when cups should be kind of handed out or whatever. But we've plenty of scope now.
Well, listen, lads, February's done. You know, the year is sprinting away from us already. That's us on this Friday.
I think I put down 60 days in the new job now. You stop counting. Like,
probation 6 months. That's us done. Anything to mention? Don't think so. No. Enjoy FA Cup weekend, I suppose. What game yet?
Waterford and Dublin on Sunday in Walsh Park.
All right. Does Walsh Park have a name?
Not yet, no.
Right.
Or if it does, actually, it would be a useful exercise to ask people who are interested in the GAA, the 20 or whatever GAA grounds that have sponsors, and see how many of them they could name.
That's a Sporkle quiz if I've ever seen it.
I don't think many of us could get beyond sort of 3 or 4.
TEG, that's Westmeath, isn't it?
Yeah.
Chadwick's Wexford Park.
Yeah. Kingspan is obviously... Shit, what is it obviously?
Definitely.
Yeah. The Ulster ones? No, listen, what we're doing.
Armagh's Boxit something.
Yeah, Boxit Athletic Grounds, yeah.
What's Pierce?
Well,
Nothing.
Don't hate
Keane. What's Connacht's?
Cedar.
Cheddar.
Cheddar, yeah.
Kilkenny.
UPC.
UPC. A lot of them, the 3 letters is tough.
We're limping to a finish.
Yeah, sorry. They say finish strong.
Keep this in.
Leave them wanting more. All right, lads. Thanks, Mill.
Thanks.
Okay.